Hello, I'm Katie and this is Stepmum Space, the judgment-free zone where we'll talk candidly about the fairy tales and scary tales of stepmum life. So whether you've been a stepmum for years, you're just starting out, or you want to understand the stepmum in your life a little bit better, this is the place for you. Now, a lot of you got in touch with me after last week's episode with Lucy. It definitely resonated with so many women out there, so thank you so much for all of your messages. I love hearing from you. Today I'm going to be talking to Helen, a stepmum veteran. She's been there, done it and got the t-shirt, and 20 years later she is still there. Helen is full of brilliant insights, and I'm sure, as I did, that you'll take a lot from her wisdom and experience. So let's get into it. So hi Helen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. So I think it's fair to say you are probably the most experienced stepmom that we've had on the show, so you can share with us all your wisdom. So it's been over 20 years, hasn't it?
That's right, yeah, I think, but or maybe this might even be the 20th year. I lose a bit of track of time.
So tell us about when you first met your husband.
Oh God, like 100 years ago. It feels like another lifetime ago now because it has been so long. I knew he had kids and that was never a problem or even something to think about. Yeah, it just kind of came with the territory, if you like.
And what was the setup in the early days? How often were they with you?
One night in the week and every other weekend.
How was it sort of when you first met them?
Do you know, it was really good, I think, initially. Like I remember we did a very gentle introduction, so it wasn't full on and we were really careful. My parents had separated when I was young, so I had a lot in mind about what not to do from my own experience. So I think I brought that with me and we were very careful. But I remember the first night I stayed over and they stayed over. When he was putting them to bed, they said, can we all just sleep in the same room together? I mean, at the time, he was living in like rented accommodation. They just had air beds on the floor, but they brought their air beds in and we all just slept in the same room together. So like that was a nice memory.
Yeah, that's really cute. And how was the situation with their mum at that time? Had they been separated a long time or?
Not a huge amount of time. She was with somebody else and he had 2 children. So I think they were used to the fact that their mum was in another relationship before we kind of introduced them to me.
I tend to hear from women that if the biological mother's in a relationship, it makes things a little bit easier.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it was easy for like a number of reasons. But I guess easier. I guess that's fair to say, yeah.
And how old were the kids when you first met them?
I think they were about 5 and 9.
What were the big challenges that you came up against?
I think so I have a stepson and a stepdaughter. I think big challenges early on were, for my stepdaughter, probably that she liked me and her challenge around feeling like she was betraying her mum in some way. But I think ground rules that my husband and I had like early on were you never say anything negative about their mum. If you think it's irrelevant, like in front of them. And I think as well that a lot came from my childhood experience where my parents didn't like each other very much and that wasn't very nice to be in the middle of. That was kind of nice. So being able to hold that space for my stepdaughter and say, it's all right that you miss your mum, but you're here, or, all of that kind of stuff.
That whole part about her finding it difficult because she liked you, I think there's quite a few women I speak to who experience that. How did you work your way through that with her?
I was really open about it, and I think because my parents had separated, I was able to talk to her about that, and so to say that I did understand that and that was confusing. We always talked like from day one, we always talked about everything. Like I know I'm making it sound a bit like I never made a mistake. Trust me, I made hundreds, but there was always that you could say whatever you wanted and it was okay, like even if it didn't sound very nice. it was all right. But I remember a time, I don't know if it was early, it was quite early on because they were young. We went away for a weekend and I remember her crying because she missed her mum, but cuddling me. And it was a really confusing thing because she wanted the cuddle from me, but it was a mum she missed. And that being, but I remember that in such an affectionate way because it was really nice that she took comfort from me, even though I wasn't the right person. Do you know what I mean? Like she never made any bones about the fact that she wished her parents were still together. And that's fine, you know, and that was always fine. Always fine.
Did it hurt you in any way when she said that?
I don't think so from her because I got it, like I really understood it. In that situation, I didn't see that as about me. I think especially because she was so young, like it was that real innocence of, you know, I wish they were together.
Yeah.
And I think probably because I've been in their lives since they were young, I don't see that as about me. I mean, stuff has hurt me. The fact that you're always an outsider, you know, like that hurts. Not that specifically in terms of I wish my parents were together, but that thing about on the periphery of something that can hurt.
Did you often feel like that?
Yeah, a lot. And I think like on reflection, because I've been thinking about this a lot, you know, in terms of looking back, I think I'd felt lonely as a child in my own family. And then coming to this, I was like, in my head, I was going to right the wrongs of, you know, what it feels like to come from a family where your parents are separated, just to feel lonely again. Of course, they would talk about stuff that they'd done or parties that they'd been to or Christmases or birthdays. And then when my husband's parents would come around, it would be like everyone had this story that you weren't then part of, you know, or jokes or, you know, nicknames. And because as well, like I think my mum was ill, so she had Alzheimer's and was in her home, so she wasn't part of our lives by the time we'd got together.
Okay.
So I didn't have that, like I wasn't bringing my family into it as well. It was always me being on the periphery of everything else. So that was, I found that really hard.
Yeah, I guess the balance is off and everyone else has
Yeah.
that belonging thing and you're not quite there. And you talked about how kind of it's really nice that your stepdaughter was able to find comfort in you when she missed her mum. Did you guys always have a good relationship?
I think underlying, I would say yes. Oh, but we definitely had our moments. Um, because of course, at some point in her life, she became a teenager. But also, I don't think I did everything right. You know, like I don't know who does. So I don't berate myself in that regard. I think she found a lot of stuff really hard, and when I look back, I wish I'd done a lot differently. Yeah, funnily enough, I have spoken to her about that, and she, you know, her words were, you know, I consider myself really lucky because I've got four parents.
Wow. I guess she's an adult now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing to be able to say. And did her mum stay with the same partner as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, I mean, that's really nice that she's had that stability and things. So when you sort of said, oh, I've definitely made mistakes, I wouldn't do things the same. If we've got some people listening who are a bit earlier on in their journey, it's nice to hear you kind of say, yeah, I made mistakes. That's okay. That's normal. What sort of things do you think you would do differently if you had your time again?
I think the most important thing is to look after yourself, and to put yourself first. Because I am a people pleaser anyway, which isn't great for this situation. You know, it's not great for many situations, but I didn't look after myself and I didn't ask for what I wanted. So, for example, in those situations where I found things hard, I didn't say, I found this hard. I could have express that sometimes when this happens, this is hard, and actually I would like a cuddle, or you know, I would like some time out, or whatever that thing is. I didn't ask for what I want for two reasons, I think, because I was probably embarrassed or felt ashamed for having a need at that time, and also I probably wouldn't have even known what it was that I needed or
Yeah,
wanted.
because I was going to say, what sort of things would you have liked that you weren't getting?
Well, I think, and this is only in hindsight because it's a lot of time to reflect.
Yeah.
um, but I think when you're in this situation, you have like the inner child part of you that's kind of going, oh, what about me? I want to be loved too. I think that you've got to give that to yourself first, knowing a bit more about what that looks and feels like for you. Um, I was always doing everything for everybody and anticipating every possible scenario so that nothing could go wrong and everybody would be as happy as they possibly could. And not once did I consider what that looked like for me in all of that. So I think in some regards, I made things worse because I passed my stress on to the situation, because I would feel frustrated that nobody had looked after me, but I'd never told them how, I'd never told them what I might want, and I'd never given them the space to do it.
Maybe you in yourself didn't feel you were allowed to do that.
It's ironic because I felt as a child a lot my feelings didn't matter. And then when I became in that situation, I thought my feelings don't matter because the child matters. And so all I'd done is move myself from a position of I don't matter to another position of I don't matter. And so that's why I say about like the whole thing about the inner child is still there going, oh, I'm still not getting my needs met. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the fact that that's part of all of us. You know, in any situation there's always going to be the child version of us that goes, what about me, this isn't fair, or but because we're an adult we think we shouldn't say those things.
Yeah, and it's those things that you feel ashamed for feeling, but it's perfectly, I hate the word normal, but it's perfectly
Yeah.
normal to feel like that. But we grow up kind of in the whole like the kids come first way, that we think, oh, the kids come first. I mustn't have any need for anything for myself at all, or I'll be right back into kind of wicked stepmother modes. And it's interesting when you talk about what you brought from your childhood, because I think a lot of the time the women I talk to, and myself included, you play out your role again, don't you? Unless you're
Yeah.
unless you're wise to it. So you can see the same thing happening again. At what point did you figure actually I do matter?
Oh, probably only a couple of years ago. Like, I think it took a really, really long time. No, yeah, I think I probably only really realized that when I started working in a field of coaching, you know, where I started to do the research and the work where you understand how to piece these things together. I'm not sure I would have necessarily come to that conclusion on my own.
It's so important to be able to understand ourselves in that way, because you know those light bulb moments, and a lot of the women I talk to, we run workshops and things, a lot of these women will suddenly this light bulb realization moment of, oh, you've always thought one thing and actually it's not true at all. Quite amazing, really.
I think we have a responsibility as well to children to model self-care. And I think I probably modeled what I'd seen as a child, which wasn't always right. I mean, there was a lot that was great. Like from my mum, I got a fantastic sense of play. Like when she read a story, she did the different voices, and so I have a lot of that in me. So we would have little Halloween parties, or you know, we'd full on dress up, and or we'd read stories, or you know, have carpet picnics and watch films and make pop. So you know that those bits that I got from my mum were like super. But I don't ever remember her looking after herself, and I do remember her very much going, blaming us for how tired she was or how hard she had to work and how she'd given up her life for us and all of that. So I guess like subliminally I've got all that right. You don't have a life. You know, when there are children around you, you're not important. You know, like
Yeah.
honestly, that's kind of what I got all of that from that.
Actually, just thinking about some of the role models I've had, maybe it's a generational thing, because I definitely grew up thinking that you worked hard as a parent, and
Mhm.
you know it was that hard work that got you there. So I think I definitely need to be better at modeling self-care actually to my kids. I'm just sitting here thinking, oh, I've got even my 12-year-old say to me like, Mum, sit down, have a rest. Like, so God, I've had one of those moments myself now. I need to sit down a little bit more, model stopping. Gosh. So you've shared a bit about your stepdaughter. What was the relationship like with your stepson?
I think always pretty good. I don't know if there's a thing about how boys or girls adapt to the situation, but I kind of remember him always as pretty easygoing. I don't remember any particular, out of the ordinary issues with him. He seemed quite accepting of what had happened. Like he obviously asked questions and stuff like that, but I don't remember anything particularly.
Hmm. And I'm interested in something you said earlier around, you weren't telling people what you needed.
Hmm.
So obviously then they weren't giving it to you. How did that play out? Because I guess with your husband, he's not giving you what you need, which must have been incredibly frustrating for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's frustrating for everybody because I think, like, I recognize, like I was saying, I recognize what I bring to a situation. So equally, I can blame my mum for this because she's no longer with us, so there's going to be no comeback. But I remember things like Christmas or her birthday or whatever being really tough because she would always be disappointed or feel let down or whatever. And I remember being really annoyed about that. Like you'd go to a lot of effort to make things nice for her, and then
Yeah.
she'd be fed up. And then when I look in the round, I think, oh my God, I did that as well because I build up real expectations of how things were going to be. Like I think I had use control to find peace, like if I can orchestrate all of these things to work out, then everything will go fine. And of course life's just not like that. And so to be disappointed that I hadn't done something perfectly, and I would try and model like superb maturity and say it's really important for the children to have time with their dads and like on their own, and then
Yeah.
be like so left out. Like, be like two versions of me living at the same time. Like the one who genuinely and wholeheartedly thought it was, and still do believe that the children should be able to say, "Can I just go out with my dad?" Like I just want to spend some time with you, or like whatever that was. I still think that's important, but still at the same time they're like, oh, I'll just be here. um
Yeah. Making everything really nice for you for when you get back.
yeah, yeah, and then again feeling not part of something. So and I think how I didn't make that easy was I would definitely give off a nice kind of passive aggressive vibe to
Mm.
accompany that. Like I say, these are all things like I feel so ashamed about, like when I talk about it out loud, but equally I get it. Like I'm trying to be compassionate to myself because there was so much I didn't know.
Mm.
um and I think I wished I could have had that I mean, I would very much be able to have that conversation with my husband now, but then to go, I'm going to say this and I really mean this, but there's another part of me that really doesn't mean that. And
Mm.
like,
I think there's loads of situations where you can go, I know this is the right thing, and I believe that this is the right thing, and I want this thing to happen, but it also does make me feel like this. And both of
yeah,
those
yeah,
things can be true, can't they? But
yeah, yeah,
it's just knowing so that your husband knows actually once he's, I don't know, spent the whole day out with his kids, he needs to come home and kind of give you an extra hug and maybe cook a nice meal for when they've gone to bed or something.
yeah,
Because sometimes I think they anything in anybody that they know is like the less desirable trait, you'll always try and sort of hide it away, won't you, rather than actually bringing it
yeah.
out. And if you bring it out and you can express it in the right way, then at least the people around you got half a chance of managing it.
Well, and I think the other thing I would say for anybody in a similar position is to let it, to accept the help, because I think my husband would have said, and then let's all go out for dinner. And I would go, no, we cannot do that. And I would block it. I wouldn't let the nice thing happen. Like it could have been, say for example, they all went out for a day together, and then we all met for dinner, and it was all nice, and then tell us what happened. But I wouldn't let the nice thing happen.
Oh,
It was almost
really?
like, yeah, I would continue to punish myself in some way. I don't know, like that. Well, that's years of therapy, but it's it's about recognizing it and then letting it happen,
Mm.
like let people help you and acknowledge that that's a nice thing and say thank you and then do it, even if it doesn't feel overly comfortable. Go with it, and also because I think that's another thing, isn't it? If a people trying to be nice and you don't let them, what are you teaching them there? It's like, it's not
Mm.
helpful.
So, how did you cope with those feelings of being like an outsider?
I think I cried a lot. I was pretty unhappy. Like, I would have really unhappy times. And but then I also have again from my mother, like a shut up and get on with it. Like just keep going. And my personality type is to have a big outburst and then just work hard. Like just knuckle down and get on with it kind of thing. So not healthy and not helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good thing that you've learned to be more compassionate to yourself now, but it sounds like it's taken its toll sort of over the years, as with a lot of women.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think I just added to it, added to it, added to it, and I burnt out a couple of years ago, and that was my like proper hit rock bottom. So it took me a long time to notice the patterns, and I'm a lot older now, a lot wiser. But I think the thing for me is it's really important that people see it for themselves and try and notice the patterns, and I think it's just so important to know what you need and to spend some time thinking about that and talking about it, and then allowing you to get your needs met. Like you don't have to be the hero in all of this. And I think as women, we kind of expect that we are, don't we? Like because we're the caregivers and we're supportive and we're all of these wonderful things, and we don't want to be seen as the wicked stepmother, and we don't want to be horrible people. Like we have all of these labels that we attach to ourselves, the rights and wrongs and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, and it's a weight. It's a really big weight to carry, and underneath it all there's us as a whole person that have needs and wants and deserves to have them met. And like I say, like we're role modeling that to the kids that we live with. And so I do think it's really important to make mistakes and admit we've made mistakes, and because that's what we want to show, isn't it? Like we want to show that we get angry sometimes and we say things we might regret, because people do that, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's so important to remember that. And a lot of women that I speak to will talk about berating themselves for months, years about mistakes that they've made with their stepchildren or things that they've handled in a way that they look back now and think they shouldn't have done. You talked about making a lot of mistakes over the years. How do you get past them?
I think I have to remember that I'm a human being, and I think I hadn't associated myself that way. Like I think I always viewed myself as like I had a high expectation of being a bit superhuman. And I think again, like, oh gosh, sounds so bad, doesn't it? But brought up in a household where, you know, being a woman was considered like you have to work twice as hard as any man to prove yourself. You must be strong. These were all of the messages that I got, to look after other people, put other people first, and all of those kind of things, that I think realizing that I'm just a human being making mistakes and working stuff out, and to be able to give myself the compassion to forgive it. Stuff happens. I think what's funny is or different is when they're not your kids and they're not your blood. Like somehow you've done a really bad thing to someone else's kids. Maybe when they're yours, it doesn't matter if you mess up their heads, but like when they're when they're not yours, like
Mm.
that's like it's criminal. And I think that's a really funny thing about being a step parent is you're not allowed into some spaces. Like you could never go to parents' evening, or there's 2 tickets to the school concert, you're not going. Like all of those things that you're never going to be part of, but you carry this responsibility of, oh my God, you're someone else's child. I must protect you and look after you because I want to give you back whole. You know, I don't want you to be broken in any way. And it's a really weird position to be in.
Yeah, and I think you get all the responsibility and none of the autonomy, really, don't you? In with
Yeah.
someone else's child. When you were talking earlier about the difference as a stepmother role, I certainly, and I think I've spoken about this before, but I've certainly forgive myself a lot easier for quote unquote mistakes I make on my own children, biological children. I don't know why that is, whether it's that thing of I'm a bit more compassionate with myself. Did you find you had the support of your husband when kind of mistakes happened?
I think so. I mean, we are incredibly strong as a couple today because of all the stuff that we've been through. I mean, there's many times I've thrown my toys out the pram and gone, you know, sod all this, like I'm done. Like, I don't want it. I can't do it.
Because of step situations?
Yeah, I think maybe, yeah, the weight of that and the frustration of that. And because it brings about arguments that just wouldn't normally happen, I think. You know, like when you want to do something because it's a birthday, but it's the kids' weekend, or, you know, like, I don't know, like all of that kind of stuff. And I think probably like I take a lot of responsibility for not being able to ask for what I want. I think a lot of problems in our relationship came because of that, because I wasn't able to say, actually, I'd like a holiday just with you, or I'd like, you know, if anything, I push the family agenda. Like, we must work out when we have the kids, we must, you know, apportion the, you know, like I pushed and pushed that
Do you know why?
because I didn't have it as a kid.
Mm.
And I didn't want them to feel any of the pain that I had as a child.
Mm.
Like, you know, like all my other rules were never speak badly about their mother, don't ever buy their affection. Like, when they come, they get treated like their family, you know, like they have to contribute and do the washing up after dinner, or you don't just go out and buy them presents and confuse them and, you
Mm.
know, make things complicated. And, you know, these were all like, yeah, my 10 commandments of being a step parent, if you like. But I just wanted it to be right. But I think maybe I was a little bit rigid about that, which didn't help.
In terms of boundaries and expectations on the kids?
I made it a bit too rigid. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I think we had a lot of good fun, like I was saying, like the play element and doing stuff, and like we had a lot of good stuff. But I think when I felt rocky, I built the walls up to kind of try and create my safe space. And so if anything kind of didn't work with that, then that was tricky and made more tricky by me. You know, like it's that whole thing, isn't it? When you think, how can everybody do this to me? When you realize, oh, I just did that to myself.
That's the worst. That's so annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've definitely had that with my husband when he'll be like, but you never told me that was what you wanted. And I'm like, yes, you're right. I didn't, but you should have just known.
I love that. That's that whole thing, isn't it? Like when you're talking to a bloke and he says, "Oh, it's my wife's birthday," and you say, "What did you get her?" And he says, "Nothing." And you go, "What?" He goes, "Well, she said she didn't want anything." Well, she didn't make that.
Quite. No, you need to present at least 3 thoughtful personal gifts.
Yeah. I want you to
love.
read my mind and then give me all of the things I'm too ashamed, embarrassed, or scared to ask for.
Oh gosh, so funny. One of the things that I think stepmums who've been kind of stepmums for a while are really good at is talking about some of the more uncomfortable emotions that they've sort of come across over the years and how they might have dealt with them. You know, we hear jealousy, resentment, anger, those types of things come up. I know a lot of women who are a bit earlier on in the journey find it really comforting to hear actually that's okay. I'm guessing you've experienced kind of some of these more complicated emotions along the way.
Definitely all of them. I think all of those emotions are normal, healthy life. They're just life. I think we're going to feel a range of all of those things. And I think the trick is to be able to work out what it is. And even if you're really ashamed of saying, I feel really jealous, because you're paying attention to somebody else or whatever that is. And if you can't articulate it outwardly to your partner or whatever, to name it for yourself and go, that's okay. Because I think my thing where I made it worse is I was too ashamed to admit I was jealous or resentful. And so I pushed it down. And of course, that doesn't help anything. It just comes back out somewhere at some time and it's going to be unpleasant. What I would recommend, if you've read or got Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, so that book is just so beautiful for being able to articulate the emotion that you feel. And I think to be able to go, oh, it's that, like you take the power away from that emotion when you give it some space. I wish I'd known that.
That is a beautiful book, and it is really helpful. One of the things that I sort of learned a little while ago was actually it's not the feeling that you have that's the problem, it's the feeling that you have about the feeling that you have.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. Yeah.
So how's your relationship with your stepkids now they're adults?
Brilliant. I'd say they come to us when they need stuff. They ask for advice. I mean, we don't see them all the time. They are at that age where they have their own lives, but I feel proud and privileged to be part of their life. That's nice. Like I say, they'll just talk about what's happening in their lives or ask for some advice, some support when applying for a job, whatever that thing is. And that just feels like a really good place to be.
You talked a bit earlier about how there were a number of times when you sort of threw your toys out the pram and nearly walked. What kept you in your relationship?
He's really good at persuading me back. I think my natural instinct is to run. I'm definitely, if you're fight, flight, or freeze, I'm gone. But also, I guess I always wanted it to work, and that belief that you can really work through anything. I think allowing myself to be loved probably is an important thing. And maybe being able to articulate what wasn't working out for me and to be able to have that conversation. I think being able to talk openly is so important, and having time to do that.
Particularly when children are younger, and if people have busy careers, maybe have other children, there's not that time, that space to actually have the conversation unless you're in conflict or in that situation. And then it's never a good time, is it? Because you're full of emotion or adrenaline and it's difficult and you can't actually sit down and have the conversation you need to have. And I think so many times we get so hung up on, as you mentioned, the shoulds and shouldn'ts, and like, oh, well, I shouldn't feel like that because, to your example, oh, I shouldn't feel jealous that he's out with his kids because they don't get to see him all the time. And actually, it is all right that you feel like that. You're not saying, I don't want him to go, he shouldn't go. You're just saying, I feel a bit jealous.
Yeah.
Knowing those feelings and that it's okay is like almost half the battle, because I think stepmums, more than anybody else, beat themselves up so badly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just remember being like so terrified about so many things, like when the kids walked to the shops on their own for the first time, like from here or whatever, and I'd be like, oh my God, what if they get lost or run over, or like all those things, because it is like you have such a huge responsibility, and yeah, you definitely want to do it right. I mean, I think whatever parenting you do, you want to do it right, don't you? But I think
Always.
when you're giving the kids back to someone else, you want them to go back whole.
And did you feel like that you're giving them back to someone else? Like, it's quite interesting language.
Is it? That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because I don't suppose they lived here. It was only like a weekend trip.
Yeah.
So we actually bought a house big enough for them to have a bedroom each, because we thought it was really important that they had their own space when they were with us.
Yeah.
Like we wanted them to feel like they had a second home. But yeah, I always felt like they lived with their mum.
So you're 20 years in, you've you've got the t-shirt. You've made it through. You have got a good relationship with both your stepkids, and you kind of said your relationship with your husband's stronger than ever, which is awesome. What advice have you got for somebody who's at the beginning of their journey?
Don't ever expect that you're going to know what's going to happen, because you don't. You think you know what's going to happen, like you think you know it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, like with the shade of what that hard looks like. But then equally, there will be joy, like whatever you have with one side, you must have with the other. And maybe not to have too many expectations about that, to relax with it and to go with it rather than try and be too rigid. But the most important thing is to look after yourself, to proper know how to get self-care and to allow yourself to have it, and to be able to tell people that's what you want, and to know what it looks and feels like to be respected, I think, because if you don't do it for yourself, people don't know how to do it for you.
So important. And we're not talking about kind of running a bubble bath with a candle when we talk about self-care.
No.
It's like that proper, do that work out what it is you need from people, and what it is you need from yourself, and then map out how to get that. So look, it's been so nice talking to you. I found it so uplifting and so much good advice in there, and some honest admissions from somebody who's been through it all. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, that time's just like whizzed past. But I would say, knowing what I know now, if I went back, I would still do it again. I think it depends where you are, who you are, and what's going on in your world. But I know for me, I wouldn't not have those kids in my life.
And I think also it's about equipping yourselves with the tools that you need.
Yes.
It's tough. It's not an easy journey. And I think having the support and the tools that you need is massively important. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Oh gosh, so much great advice in there. I really, really hope that you enjoyed that and took something from the conversation. It is so important that we take care of ourselves. Stepmums suffer twice the depression and anxiety that biological mothers do, yet there is so little support out there. It is woeful. Now, those of you who listen regularly will know that I am so passionate about changing things, and one of the things I love most about doing this podcast is the support that we're finally able to offer other women, and the safe spaces we can create to work through issues that only stepmums really understand. So there are some new dates live on the website for 2 new virtual workshops. The first is about how to navigate feeling out of control and creating and maintaining boundaries. So if you are someone who feels out of control of so many of the important things in your life, you feel overwhelmed by how much the stepmom role has changed you, and you're really, really in need of creating some boundaries to help you manage it, this is the workshop for you. We'll work through exercises individually and in groups. There'll be a chance to talk to other women, or just listen if that's what you'd prefer to do, and we'll come up with some really clear action plans that you can take to improve your life. The second one is about managing conflict and building resilience. So we know resilience is vital, yet it is something which continually gets challenged as a stepmom. So in this workshop, we explore how to build and maintain your resilience. So it's not just about being tough, it's about really understanding yourself and being true to yourself and your personal values, and creating strategies to help you manage better in the moment and longer term when you're triggered. So we'll delve into what your triggers are, and we'll craft ways to help you respond better in that moment. And we'll work out what it is that makes you feel great, how to get more of it, what it makes you feel not so great, and how to get less of it. It's a really, really brilliant workshop. So if you're looking for a way that you can kind of take some of that control back and improve your stepmom life, then do go and have a look at these workshops on our website at www.stepmumspace.com/workshops. A massive thank you to Helen for sharing her story today. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do rate us and review and subscribe, as according to the clever people, it helps the algorithm take us to other stepmums who will be feeling like you did before you found the show. And of course, as always, if you've got a story to share, please do drop me a note on Instagram at stepmumspace or via the website www.stepmumspace.com. See you next time.